Bonjour. Need you now. How are you?
Good. You?
I'm an open modest. I'm living pretty good, doing pretty well. Just gonna wait a couple minutes here for some more folks to pop in, then we'll get started.
Sounds good. I finally remembered the time difference to catch one of these.
Yeah, time zones can be kind of complicated sometimes. Is it Eastern? Is it Central? Is it Mountain? Zane getting on Gordigan. It's hard sometimes. But I'm hoping we'll have some people come in, but I'm afraid some of them may have thought because I was canceling the live class that I wasn't going to do this, but I figured
Right.
I might as well still do it online. No reason I can't. Oh, somebody's coming in. Okay. Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Bonjour. Need you now. How are you?
How are you?
So we're just going to wait Bob Weechgam and Noma for a little bit here for some more folks to pop in. Give it maybe like another minute or two, then we'll get started. So just hold forth for just a little bit. We'll get started.
Justin, how's the recording work for these sessions? Are you recording everything or is it just the...
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it records pretty much everything that's happening. So just FYI, but the idea behind it is simply that way if later on we can take it and we can kind of cut it down a little bit and we can put it on our YouTube channel so people can watch it later. It's useful that way. So yeah. But if you don't want to be recorded, I mean, just I guess don't maybe like turn off your camera or turn off your audio if you're concerned about that. But
I probably will flip off in a second.
that's fine. Wagwin Dekned Windman Ejitchkayan. Whatever you'd like to do is fine. So okay. Ooh. And give it just maybe one more minute here and then we'll get started.
Hopefully your little one's feeling better.
Yeah, bagagey, a little bit. He's really not too sick, but I mean, he did test for flu. It's one of those deals where, once you've tested for it, I mean, they have to keep you out of school for a certain number of days. So, and my wife, she's we're going to be expecting her a new baby here in May, so trying to help
Wow.
make sure that she has her time that she needs. So that leaves me at home, but there's a lot that I can get done here from home as well. But so
that's starting to add up for you, I think. You already have a fairly large family, don't you?
I do. That'll make number 8. So
Bravo, Nishan.
yeah, Nimadog Windan Jash Mizodanik. I like the idea of a large family. I always wanted that, and so I've got it. So
Congrats. Congrats to both of you
miigwech.
for the new one.
Well, I think we're gonna go ahead and get started, and we'll just, if some more people pop in, that's fine. But let's see here. So this class is going to be a little bit about kind of putting it together. Some of the previous classes that I've been doing on these Mondays and Thursdays, we've kind of talked about like the let me turn my camera back on. There we go. Talked about like the forms, the verbal forms, and like understanding the patterns. And honestly, if you can get some of these patterns down really well, you can really start using the language really fast. Chongi kindasi norajesh monagi panoje wian gonna bitch datso shach noak anakem datso shach schwatzo bawamshe netum egi bisidoyan orajesh mon. So I did not know the language as a child. I started learning the language when I was about 17 or 18 is when I first heard the language. Nimikwindan Gijia Iba Shishibania Kamaujish Mina Ora Kekyat Walter Cooper Jin Kazot Egi Madmot. And I went to this Citizen Potawatomi gathering, and I heard this gentleman, Walter Cooper, pray in the language, Pene Shana Namadog Windan and Nishnabe Wian Mina Spinendaman Bodewad Mi Wian. I always knew that I was Potawatomi, and I was very proud of being Potawatomi, but Neshja Egi Nindaman Watea get to Jesh Momanan Yawan. We have our own language, like wow, like light switch went on or something for me, like I don't know why I never really thought about it at all, but I was just like, huh. And so from that day forward, I Nedwindan Nishkatoyan Megwa Ora Bodewad Mimwin. And so I tried to learn this language, and it's been it's a lifetime type journey, and I think that's something to keep in mind as a student of the language, as a Potawatomi person, that you have a lifetime to learn your language. And I think if you keep that in mind, that that it's not maybe as intimidating, and you're going to make strides as you go along, and some things are going to come easier and some things are going to be a little bit harder. And it's just, you have to be patient with yourself is the number one thing to remember, to be patient with yourself. So today I made a little dialogue here, just like some little short dialogue of some stuff, and I didn't put the English. I wasn't sure who would be with me, so I was gonna have them see if they could guess what it is. But if you guys are not at that level, that's okay. I will explain each of these words and what I'm saying here. So, Wenija o Yawit. Wenija o Yawit. Wenija o Yawit. Who is that? Wenija means who. The Yahweh is the verb to be something. Yawit means he or she is. So who is he or she? Nimisho. 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 Nimisho is my grandfather. And whenever we're talking about a person, all of our relative terms are possessed. Not possessed like demonically possessed, but simply it's my dad, it's your grandpa. You didn't have random people that weren't connected just roaming around your village. You know, it's somebody's. It's my cousin, it's your cousin, it's our cousin, it's their cousin. You know, they're related to someone in some way. So that sense of connectivity kind of runs throughout the language in a lot of different ways, from relative terms to the importance of like the clan structure and things like that. The connectivity of things is important. So Nija Ejna Kazot. Nija Ejna Kazot. What is his or her name? Virgil Jinkazo. His name is Virgil. Virgil Jinkazo. Now in Potawatomi, it's he or she. You only know that if it's a man or a woman based on what you're talking about, or in this sense, I said grandpa, so we'd assume that this is a man. So Nija Ejna Kaza, what is his name? But what is his or her name? So you could use that same thing if you were asking, what is her name? Nija Ejna Kazot. And you may have heard Nija Ejna Kajin, what is your name? But this is what is his or her name, Nija Ejna Kazot. And Jin Kazo is the verb to be called something. He or she is called something. And if you guys have questions as we're going along, I'd be happy to keep an eye on it, and you can put them in the chat box if you want, if you don't want to say it out loud. But Nipija Wechbiat o Gamishomas. Nipija Wechbiat o Gamishomas.
Where did your grandfather come from?
Yeah, where does your grandfather come from? Nipija Wechbiat o Gamishomas. Now the difference between this one and the earlier one, the Nimisho. Nimisho is more of a familiar term. It's kind of like, kind of an affectionate term for your grandpa. A lot of times people will just say, oh, Misho, my grandpa, Nimisho. And then Nimishomas is kind of the more formal way, and Gamishomas, your grandfather. But since we're talking about somebody else's, we're using the more formal way of saying it. Now the word bia means, like you said, is to come. And then that wetch part is indicating that like a direction. But you hear that a lot when we say Nipija Wechbiayan, where are you from? Nipija Wechbiayan, Nipija Wechbiat, where is he or she from? Oh, Gamashoma. So where's your grandfather from? Sacramento, California, Wedjabia. Sacramento, California, Wedjabia. Gamashomasne Mbawachawe. Gamashomasne Mbawachawe. So that first part, Sacramento, California, he comes from. That's the Wedjabia is the he or she form of that verb. When we say I come from, it's Mdochbia. You come from, it's Gedochbia. And then it's Wedjabia. And then Ndoch. And then it just kind of works its way through the pattern like that. But Wedjabia, he or she comes from. Gamashomasne Mbawachawe. Gamashomasne Mbawachawe. So that right there is a question. Number one, it's a question because I have a question mark on it, but you don't need a question mark in Potawatomi because that NE right there is an indicating of a simple type question. So Gamashomasne Mwachawe. So what we're saying here is we're saying your grandfather question. He is visiting. So is your grandpa visiting? Gamashomasne Mwachawe. Mwachawe is the verb to visit. And this is just a basic verb for visit. There's one thing about Potawatomi is there's different levels of types of verbs. There's like 4 main types of verbs. There's kind of a basic verb that just doesn't really affect anybody else. And then there's a verb where you interact, you as an animate person interact with something. So like I touch it, I touch the table, I pick up the book, I drink the pop. And then there's an animate form of that too, where you say like, I touch that person, That person throws me the ball, I throw it to them, you know. And then finally, there's the final type of verb. A lot of times it's called a VII verb, and these are a lot of times adjectives in English. A lot of the things that we consider adjectives in English, a lot of times are verbs in Potawatomi, like to be red, it's red, they're red, or to be smooth, it's smooth, they're smooth, to be large, it's large, or they are large. They're actually verbs most of the time in Potawatomi, though there are a few little things you can add to some nouns to kind of change them a little bit. But so the language is very verb heavy. English is a little bit different. English has a lot of, again, has a lot of nouns, a lot of adjectives. The other thing about English that makes it a little complicated is with Potawatomi, most of the information about who's doing it is attached right there on the verb. Where in English, the person is kind of over here, and then there's things in between it, and then there's the verb. So it's not like right up on the verb. But because of that, word order is not as important in Potawatomi as it is in English. Usually what you want to do is put out the most important thing kind of out front, or if it's a question, the thing that you're actually wanting to ask, maybe it might be what you put out front. Or if you're talking about like, where did you go? You might put out the location first. So anyway, that's very long.
Does it actually? Oh, I apologize, Justin.
Go ahead.
I thought you were, I didn't mean to interrupt. I thought you were done.
You're fine. You're fine. I'm a Zamdone. I talk a lot. So.
On the, so just to take this sentence or this question as an example, can you actually say Mbwachewe ne Gishomis?
Yes, you
Is
could.
that grammatically?
Yeah, that's grammatically correct. You could say Mbwachewe ne Gishomis. Exactly. Yeah. And if there was more going on in this sentence, there's other parts that could go up the front. The key here is that when you ask these questions, these simple questions, that any, that ne, it's one of the few things that has a place it has to go. It has to be usually the second thing in the sentence. So it's
right. Yeah. That much I know. Do you have to say Ogoshomas if you invert the order like I did? Do you need to have the?
Yeah, it would make it
article
better.
Ogoshomas?
It would be better to say Omashomas. Yeah. Yeah. Ogomashomas. Yeah. Because usually we'll do that in front of the noun. So Mbwachewene Ogomashomas. It's better that way. Now, if you left it out, it's not going to be like the end of the world, but you know, it would be more grammatically correct to have that O there. Yeah, excellent. Yeah.
And the other question I had about this question is, I'm not quite sure what the difference is in the conjugation, but I think I've heard this question poses Gashomas ne Mbwachewe wak. Is that more than one person, or Mbwachewe wak instead of Mbwachewe?
Mbwachewe wak would be, is another way to say he or she. If you do that W-A-K, it's like an alternative form you can use. You can stick that at the end. You can either have nothing on the verb, or you can have that walk to be he or she, if that makes sense. So like, for example, maji is the verb to leave. You can say maji walk, or you can just say maji. I will say that in Kansas, occasionally you'll still hear that walk a little more than you do up north. Some of them older speakers would use that a lot, but it doesn't tend to get used as much that I hear, at least. Not that it's not used in a lot of other places, but you know what I'm saying? It's just an alternative way to add the he or she part to it. Either nothing on the verb or a walk on the verb. And occasionally some people will also even put a W up front. Like a right in front of the verb. Yeah. That's more common when you start adding the future and the past than it is with the present, but it happens sometimes. Good question. Good question. And please don't hesitate to interrupt. Like I said, there's only a couple of us in here right now anyway, so it's fine. And sometimes I get long-winded and I'll just go on and on. So jump in whenever. It's fine. Konage Wimboachewe Nash Namagijak. Konage Wimboachewe Nash Namagijak.
Konage means correct. Wimboachewe is he comes.
So he's gonna visit in the
he will come. He will, okay, yeah. He will come. Najnu Magijek. It's a number of days, but I can't read it as 5 days.
No, okay. You're on the right track. So we Mboachewe. So yes, he's going to visit. Nash means until Namagijek is prayer day, which is Sunday. So he's going to visit until Sunday, is what this reads as.
Until Sunday. Okay, see.
Yeah, that nosh means like until.
Cool.
Konige wim boachwe nash namagijik. So he's going to visit until Sunday. Winet nijapi squachka wab met o gamishomas. Winet nijapi squachka wab met o gamishomas.
Hmm.
Do you know Winet?
I do. I should. I do.
That's okay. And if
When
you
it
don't,
means it is, or it's correct, or it is, I think, right? Or
it's
that
good.
is,
It's
it's
good.
good.
Yeah, it's good. And then nijapi
Is how or
close.
what.
It's one of those words. You're right. It's one of those nijapi win.
When.
Nijapi, or sometimes you'll hear nijopi also. Nijapi. Squatch means last. Gawabmet o commission.
I saw. When did you last see your grandfather?
Yeah. When did you
Is that
last?
right?
Yes, when did you last? Exactly. And the beautiful thing about that one is, even though you may not know how the conjugation might work with wabmet, a lot of times that can be, you can figure that out from the context of it. You know what I'm saying? So nijapi squatch gawabmet o commission. So it's good. When did you last see your grandpa? Benowi nagi gachie squatch agi wabmuk. Get a bit schwatzo nagi ponges. Benowi nagi gachie squatch agi wabmuk. Get a bit schwatzo nagi ponges.
I don't know that.
That's okay. Good. That's okay.
Yeah.
Benowi is long ago or a long time ago. Nagi gachie, I was little. Gachie, I was little. Squatch, so last Egi Wabmuk, I saw him. Gonna bit Schwatzo Nagi Ponges. Maybe I was 8 years old. So that whole thing, Benowi means like it was a long time ago. Benowi, Nagi, I was Gachie, little. Squatch, last Egi Wabmuk, I saw him. Gonna bit Schwatzo, 8, Nagi Ponges, years old.
So the
Now-
Ginnebeck is maybe, or it's the sense of uncertainty.
Yeah, Ginebich is maybe or perhaps. Ginebich.
Oh, perhaps.
Yeah, it can mean
Is that-
perhaps or maybe.
All right.
There's another word.
Is that interchangeable, like with anake or something like that?
Maybe not with anake, but you can interchange it with kwetan. Kwetan's another way to say maybe or perhaps. Anake is more like or.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so if you put anake in there, it'd be like a long time ago when I was little, the last time I saw him, or 8 years old. So maybe I guess in that sentence you could maybe do it. It wouldn't mean exactly the same thing, but one you're showing like uncertainty, like maybe, like you're not really certain when it happened. Maybe I was about eight years old. The other one would be or when I was little, or when I was about 8. I mean, it would make sense, I guess, what I'm trying to say, but it wouldn't necessarily be nesap, not necessarily the same per se. So Benowi nagi gachie squatche gi wabma gonna bit schwatzo nagi ponges. Good. So
And
let me,
giponges is the sense of having an H. Is that what's
Yeah,
what's the
ponges
verb,
is-
obviously, but
the verb is pongeze, and what it literally means is you're so many snows old. Because
mhm.
because in the old days, I mean, if you make it through a winter, that's how you kind of marked your age. Because unlike down here in Oklahoma, where there's some years where it doesn't hardly snow, and in up north, it always snows and it's always wintertime and cold. And so you make it through a winter, and that's kind of the understanding that you're another year old. Excuse me. Plus, I mean, the way that we mark the new year as Potawatomi people, we mark the new year in spring. So though English speakers, they think of January 1st being the new year, for us, it's more like the spring equinox. So it's just coming up here or technically when you first hear those thunders as it's getting close to spring, that's kind of that indicator that spring has arrived. So, but the verb itself is pongaze, and like I said, it literally means snows old is what it is. You can actually change that out too. You could also say gongaze is days old, and you can say giziskaze for like months old, but you don't hear people do that too much, but it's something else you could do. Like if you're talking about a baby, I don't know how many adults would say like I'm 1,000 or 10,000 days, like I guess it'd be more than 10,000. Like 20,000 days, even more than that, I suppose. Days old, yeah. Months old. Hmm. Okay, so let me go back through this one more time and let you guys hear this again. So again, Wenija o Yawit, Wenija o Yawit. Who is that? Wenija o Yawit. You can also just say Wenija o. That would just be who is that? Yawit is the verb to be something. So he is someone. So, and I also could have put that down here. I could have said Nemisho Yahweh. He is my grandpa, but I said my grandpa, Nemisho. Because in reality, most of the time when you're talking, you're not necessarily, sometimes I draw it out a little longer so you can hear a little more vocabulary, but in reality, it's usually going to be a lot shorter than that when you're actually talking. Nija Ejnakazot, Nija Ejnakazot, what is his or her name? Virgil Jinkazo, Virgil Jinkazo, his name is Virgil. Nipija Wechbiat o Gamashomus, Nipija Wechbiat o Gamashomus. Where is your grandfather from? Sacramento, California. Wejabia. Sacramento, California. Wejabia. Gamashomusne Bowachewe. Gamashomusne Bowachewe. And one thing I will note here on the simple questions, and this is something that even myself sometimes I have to remind myself of, because we have certain tendencies as English speakers on certain things that are hard to break. One of them being, number one, is writing it more in the way that we would say it, where you put the most important thing out front. But also when we ask questions in English, a lot of times we come up. So we're like, hey, are you going to the store? Did you see that? We're kind of coming up. And with Potawatomi, you almost come down a little bit, or at the very least, you at least try to keep it right even. So it'd be like, you almost want to come down a little bit. And it's a very strong tendency with English speakers to want to go the other direction. So you have to kind of fight against that tendency sometimes. And if you get talking real fast, you might just forget, and it's not going to be the end of the world, but just to make things a little crisper, to sound a little better, coming down a little bit is important. Konage wimboachewe nash namagijak. Konage wimboachewe nash namagijak. Winet nija pishquachka wabmet o gamashomas. Winet nija pishquachka wabmet o gamashomas. Benowi gi gachie squache gi wabmak. Get a bit schwatzo gi ponges. Okay. Okay. Make sure to jump more than one there real quick. Okay, just double checking. Okay. Nijanangom. Nijanangom.
How is it today?
How are you? How are you today? How are you today? I mean, you could also just say Nijagom, like how is it today? But Nijanangom. So basically, this is just like a little bit of a variation on, you can just say Nijana for how are you? You can say Nijanagin. You can say Nijanangom, how are you today? You could even say Nija Ejbamadzian, how are you living? Nija Ejbamadzian. So this is a little variation on Nijana, how are you? Just throwing that gom today. How are you today? Nijanangom. Anwe Shishana Nescha Negwes Yaknoget. Anwe Shishana Nescha Negwes Yaknoget. Now, an answer to this, there's a zillion things you can say in response. And there's a lot of ways to say I feel okay. I can say Anwe Shishana, more of a southern way of saying it. Ija Anwa, kind of more of a Wisconsin type way of saying it. Nemanot modest, I'm living well. I could say Nemanoye, I'm good. And those are all just positive responses. I mean, if you wanted to get real specific, you could be like, well, I'm kind of tired. I really worked hard yesterday. Whatever it is you would say in English, you could say just any number of things. So, but this here is just a kind of a general, I'm well, Anwe Shishina, and then Nescha, Negwes Yaknoget. What is that next part? Nescha, Negwes Yaknoget. Anybody know?
Sure. I feel like I should know this one too, but
It's okay.
I'm drawing a blank.
That's okay. That's part of the process. I mean, I just throw it out there, giving you the chance to translate, because I think it's good practice for people to try to figure it out themselves. And Nestia, but
Right.
Negues, my son, Yaknoget, he is sick. Yaknoget. That's why I am Odajopi Ekonomageyan Wigwamak. And that's why right now I am teaching at my house.
From home. Yeah.
Because I realized, you know, I thought about canceling, because I usually do it live as well, but I was like, well, that's silly. There's no reason to cancel. I'll just do it virtual, because I usually do it virtual as well, and keep her going. So Nija Azure website. Nija Azure website. Nija Azure website.
Something in the present tense clearly. Websits. It's not like web. It's not to see, is it?
You might have heard like Jawebuk is another version of this verb, Jawebuk, or Azure website. So what you're saying is what's happening with him, or what's happening to him, like basically what's going on with him. Jawebze means happening to someone. So what's happening with him, or what's going on with him? Nija Azure website. So Nija Azure website. Gigich gotagne mina pesakwane debe sot. Gigich gotagne mina pesakwane debe, excuse me, pesakwane debe zot. Gigich gotagne mina pesakwane debe zot. It's a mouthful, I know about. Gigich gotagne. Gigich is something you can attach to a lot of body parts to indicate like an ache or a pain. Gigich gotagen. Your gotagen is your throat. Gotagen. So he has a sore throat or an achy throat. Gigich gotagen. And then mina and pesakwane debezot. Pesakwane, you may have heard that word before when talking about a shkode, a fire. Pesakwane is like, it's like you're basically his head is on fire, or he has a fever. Pesakwane debe zot. So he has a fever.
Are you literally saying that his head is hot, or?
Yeah, you're saying his head, literally the debe part is your head. And the Pesach is indicating it's like on fire almost. It's hot, as in like in that way. So it's got a really hot head. So, but it's used for a fever. Pesach wene debezot. Skena manak bamazuk be a yaknogek orajopi COVID ne. Skena manak bamazuk be a yaknogek orajopi COVID ne. Skena manak bamazuk be a yaknogek orajopi COVID ne. So skena, you know what that is? If you don't know this one, it's a great word to know. I think I use this one quite a bit. This would be the closest thing you have in Potawatomi to like a curse word, basically. We don't really have curse words in Potawatomi, and I've been told that many times by different elders. But this would be something like if you were hammering something and you like hit your finger, scan, So it's kind of like dang or geez. I'm like, dang, geez, scan, Monik bamazjuk. A lot of people be a yaknoguk. They are becoming sick, Odajopi, at this time. COVID ne? Is it COVID? So skena, monik, a lot of bamazjuk people be a yaknoguk, Odajopi. They're becoming sick. That bia at the front of that yaknoge. Yaknoge is the verb to be sick. That bia is like coming or becoming. And that's a preverb that's attached to it to say that you're becoming sick. Be a yaknoguk. Orajopi. Cho mtano bagaji wapne a. Cho mtano bagaji wapne a. Sorry, I get a kick out of that one.
So
Cho
Cho is obviously no.
Mtino is only.
Okay.
Bagaji wapne. Now, whenever you see one of these verbs that has that apne at the end of it, it's a good indicator it's some kind of sickness. Like if you say like napne, it can be a sickness. You could say like Tanashi wapne, it could be like bird flu. But this is what this is the flu. Bagaji wapne A. Flu A. That's what they told me he had. Flu A versus B, I guess. Or C. I mean, I don't know that I don't know why it mattered to me, honestly, but he had flu A. So I was like, okay. Chomtano bagaji wapne A. So. Aha, getchwajana megwa bamaja kebia bagaji wapnak nomye.
Bless you.
Miigwech.
Actually, I learned.
Gamikwen mago.
Miquin Mago.
Gamikwen mago.
Hold on. I've
That's
also
what-
heard. Shoot.
You are remembered. Gamikwen mago. That's one thing.
Quick.
They'll-
Guakwindemic. Guacmendic. Guakwindemic. Is that the same thing?
Hmm,
Do
I
you
don't know.
understand that?
Hold on, just well, I was gonna forget that I had a call coming in, but it disappeared. Say that again, Mina Kado.
Guakwindemic. Guakwindemic. I
I
think
don't
that
think I've heard that one before, but Gwek indicates like a change, like a turn or a change, and then wind is like a feeling or a thought, like Ninduk. So he or she is changing the way they're thinking or something like that.
yeah, thinking about, I think, I heard it described as thinking about you, but that might be another dialect.
Maybe. Where do you remember where you heard it?
Yeah, I heard it from, Isidore Toulouse.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Yeah, I heard it from him. It's his dialect, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
Guakwindemic.
That's interesting. I
Guakwindemic.
had heard that one, but the one that I've heard is Gamikwin Magol, to be like you're being remembered, basically, or it's like basically
Yeah,
they say that
exactly.
somebody
It's
is
the same
thinking
sense.
about you. It is the same sense, exactly.
It's the same sense.
It's the exact same sense, just maybe a little different way of saying it. But like I said, it's as if when you sneeze, they say someone's thinking about you or whatnot. Hopefully in a good way. If not, oh well, I wouldn't but hopefully.
Do you
in a good
mind, how would you spell that? Do you mind, is that possible?
Actually, it's going to be up in this lesson in a minute. So,
Okay, great.
Ironically, that was actually something I planned on talking about. So it's going to come.
Why
In a minute. So, how getchwajana megwa bamadzjuk be bagaji wapnak nomye. So, how getchwa. So, how I'm just kind of like saying, okay. And then getchwa means it's like. There's another word for that. You can also say bikwa, but getchwa is a good word to know. It can mean like, well, like, so you can be like, oh, that's like. So like if you don't have a word for something or you can't think of the word for something, you could be like, well, it's kind of like like, for example, I heard somebody one time use it for fluency. They said, oh, fluency, getchwa bemajuan. Fluency, it's like the way that water just kind of flows by or kind of like fluid like that. Okay. So Getchwa. Getchwajana megwa bamajik bia bagaji wapnak nomye. So it's like more people. They're coming down with flu lately. How Getchwajana megwa bamajik bia bagaji wapnak nomye. So it's like more people are coming down with the flu lately. There's a lot of it going around down here in Oklahoma. I don't know about the rest of the world, but it is happening here a lot just recently.
It's happening here. I think it's people sharing germs that they haven't been exposed to in a long time.
In fact, I that's what I've been ready to say. Megwa bamazik maujishnok mina yak no gak order COVID. Megwa bamazik maujishnok mina yak no gak order COVID. So then I said, yeah, there's more people, megwa, bama. And there's a couple words for more. You can say megwa, or you can say noch. They both mean more. Megwa, bamazajuk, maujishnok. They're gathering, meaning, and yak noguk, or the COVID. and they're tired of being sick with this COVID. Because I really do think that's what's happening, is that people were kind of joking around there at one point, like, oh, I guess the flu doesn't exist anymore. It's like, no, the precautions I think that people were using for keeping COVID away with the masks and stuff really kept the flu at bay, and strep and all these other things. And so now that people are starting to lessen those things and not use their masks and things, those things are coming back with a vengeance, you know? So, because obviously COVID was a lot more, or is a lot more transmittable than the flu. So it was still, people were still catching it even with masks. So, but megwa bamajik maujishno kamina yak yak nogak ora COVID. That yuck at the front of yak noget right there, that is a preverb for the word yakwaze, to be tired. Yakwaze. That's the verb, to be tired. So if I said nidi yakwes, I'm tired, or I can say bige yakwes, I'm exhausted. But that yuck, you can add that actually to different things. Like if I want to say like, oh, my legs are tired, I could say like yuck yuckade, my legs are tired. The yuckade, or the yuck nukke, my arm is tired, or whatever body part you want to use it with. So the yuck debe, my head is tired. Okay.
Justin, I had two questions. The first one is, could you just walk through there's a lot of words in this sentence I don't understand. Can you just sort of like do a literal translation, sort of word by word? It has yes, and then
Megwa,
more.
yeah, and then bamadzajuk is how we say people. Bamadze literally means the living, is what that means. He or she is alive. Bamadze.
Being, okay, so it's like being or whatever.
And then the juk, what that basically does is it takes a verb and it puts it into like kind of a pseudo noun is what it is. That juk means they that are. So when we say, for example, if we say one person, we'll put a T there and we'll say bamadzit, he or she, the living one, and then bamadzajuk, they that are alive. You see this on some other words like kekyajuk is how we say elders. Kekyajuk's a little bit different than how it is in Odawa. I think it's gete something else, but kekya literally means old. It's the verb to be old, and then you put that juk, you're saying those that are old. Kekyajuk. Now maujishno is the verb together, together. That mau indicates like bringing together. Like you can say like mau tone, to like gather stuff up, you know. Maujeshke, so you can say maujeshke, like to rake. But maujeshno is actually like a gathering, like of people. Maujeshno, and then the K at the end means they gathered. So that would read, there's more people there gathering. Mina and then yuck again it means tired. Yaknoge is still that verb to be sick, and the K at the end is they. So they are tired of being sick. Is what that literally means. They're tired of being sick.
Mhm.
Yaknoge oda COVID. That's COVID. So, but I was basically saying there is, in just a general sense, I'm just saying, hey, yeah, there's a lot more people getting together these days, basically, because they're tired of the sickness, they're tired of COVID, so they're all, you know, they're just getting together, and so you have more people getting sick. So
The second question is, that's really helpful. Thank you. The second question I had was, it's a little bit off topic, but since
Okay.
you have a in the sentence, I was curious if there's any, I've come across how in Ojibwe, or at least some varieties, some dialects of Ojibwe, there's actually a gender distinction between what men and women say yes to. I'm wondering if if you ever come across this distinction in Potawatomi as well.
No, I've never run the only places that we really have a lot of gender distinction really in Potawatomi would be occasionally with relative terms. There's different ones based on if it's a woman or a man talking about. There are a couple of expressions that are like that. Like we'll say watea for wow. And a lot of times we'll talk about it just as a general wow, but it really is more of a male word versus mamkadgamuk being more of a female word for like, wow, whoa, mamkadgamuk. Those two kind of jump out at me, but when it
So
comes
is there
to
any equivalent to a heya that you hear in Ojibwe? Is that used sort of as well by men in Potawatomi, or
hey,
it just doesn't exist?
what is hey? Is it like a yeah?
it would be sort of, as I've heard it described as the female,
No,
yeah, or also a female, ahau.
no, no, we don't have any of that. Or we don't, at least we don't today. I can't say that it never existed, but I can say that I've never heard anybody talk about a gender differential on like yes or affirmative, you know.
Mhm.
And that may be something, you know, like it could be even a dialectical thing, like with Ojibwa Odawa, you know, you could even have certain things like that still maybe exist in even like in a small community where it's kind of even versus even a wider thing. I never realized that there was a gender differential on Ojibwa, honestly, on yes. I never, like I know that they
That's
say,
apparently like West, that's more like Minnesota Ojibwe, apparently. I
you know,
don't think it's,
that makes sense to me too, because I often find that Western Ojibwa is more difficult for me to understand, and that would make some reasoning to it. I think there's a lot of Cree that gets kind of mixed in some of their. I do know that there's some things about that Western Ojibwa that's different. Now, part of that's because the Eastern Ojibwa or Southern Ojibwa, sometimes called Odawa or Anishinaabe, that they speak down in Ontario. One of the reasons that's really easy for me is because a lot of it has mixings of Potawatomi inside of it, to the point that the Potawatomi kind of got taken out of the equation as being understood as Potawatomi, but the words and things, they still exist in a lot of those dialects. And so occasionally when people run into a word and they're like, what is this word? I've never heard that. It turns out it's, you know, it's a Potawatomi word. I think the way that we kind of understand is maybe, you know, 500, maybe 1,000 years ago is kind of when we kind of separated off and kind of went our own way. But today I find that the biggest differences with Potawatomi tend to be from Southern Potawatomi than even from the northern part. Because down in like Kansas, we had a lot more interactions later on with like Sac and Fox and Kickapoo. And I think that particularly the Fox, the Meskwakis up in Iowa, quite a few Potawatomis lived with the Meskwakis or around them for about 10, 15, 20 years, something like that. And I think that definitely affects some of our language. Either we affected them or they affected us, however you want to look at it. But like our word for like work in Potawatomi is completely different than Ojibwa. It's Mikchui, then Anoki. You know, we use Mikchui, and then like our number 7 is even different. Like our numbers are a little bit different than Ojibwa. Like we don't use Bajik, we use goat, but they know goat in Ojibwa because it's kind of a sequencing type number, but it's not used in your general counting. And then also our 7 is completely different. It's Noak, which is, I think, which is interesting because 7 is such an important number. You know what I mean? And that it's so fundamentally different. So yeah. That's I don't know, but I do look at a lot of Ojibwa, and I like Isidore is a good one too. I appreciate I like reading stuff that Isidore says, and there's some things I've even, you know, I met him years ago at Anishinaabe Moan Tech, and I remember when I met him, he was telling me at the time, he said, well, you know, Potawatomi and Ojibwa, it's pretty much all the same, and I listened to his conversation, and he had a talk, and he was talking about that. And, you know, I waited till the very end because I certainly didn't want to be rude. I respect the man quite a bit, and he's a brilliant guy and very nice. And so I waited till the very end of the conversation, and I told him, I said, well, you know, I can agree with that on the Canadian side, but not on the U.S. side. I said on the U.S. side, there's a ton of stuff that's different, for everything from the directions to and I just went through like word after word, you know, like mtino only, you know, Ojibwa, they say eta. They don't say Pocognac evening, they say Naksing. But I went through this list of words with him and lots of fundamental differences. And he was kind of like, I think he was surprised because what he thought was the people that lived at Walpole Island, which is a Potawatomi technically community, that's how all Potawatomi spoke, but they really speak more of that Three Fires mixed language. And so I think he maybe perceived that as that's how Potawatomi was on the US side. And it was like, no. So interesting though.
yeah, there seems to be a lot of, well, I don't have any basis to know other than what I hear, but we crossed paths with, you and I crossed paths at a conference that I think Anne-Marie Corbière was holding a couple of months ago. And she didn't say at that time, but I've heard her say elsewhere in recordings that there's a huge variation even on the Canadian side amongst Eastern Ojibwe villages in terms of dialects and whatnot. I think
I
apparently
think
she's done
part
a
of
lot
it
of
is,
work in her dictionary and trying to map out the
Mhm.
distinctions between the different,
Yeah.
those northern villages.
And Valentine has done some amazing stuff with that stuff too, of like mapping out some of the differences between like which communities use this word versus this word. It's pretty fascinating. In fact, have you read, I'm sure you've read Valentine, right?
No, I actually was going to ask you to
Okay.
tell
It's
me.
funny
that,
you said that. I have a
haven't crossed
book.
that before.
I have a book sitting right here on my table that's probably one of the best books that I've ever read on,
Whichever one.
yeah. And it's by
Valentine.
Valentine. And it's Anishinaabe reference grammar. It's really pretty awesome. And what about the thing about that book that is really relatable is he also deals with a lot of the parts and like how like sections mean this and that, and then has like multiple words that fit into them. Example would be like Juwan is talking about like the flow of water, where you can say Bamea Juwan, water's going by, Gwek Juwan, water turns and goes this way, Gishk Juwan, it cuts off and drops, Nisa Juwan, it's kind of coming down, Mok Juwan, it's bubbling out. And there's all these different words that can all be related off of that Juwan. But he does that with like tons of words, and it's really pretty fascinating. It's one of my favorite, probably one of my favorite all-time books, I would say, is Valentine's Anishinaabe reference grammar. I also enjoy Richard Rhodes' Odawa Eastern Ojibwa dictionary, because that's really close to Potawatomi.
Yeah, I have a copy of that. That does seem to be
I've got one of those that it's pretty rough. I've written little notes, like I'll write in the sides to it of like, which some people hate when you're writing books, but I'm a book writer, so sorry. And I've just got all kinds of like little notes to the side, like, oh yeah, we kind of say it like that, but it's more like this. And but it's a pretty good one, pretty good reference too. You've seen our online dictionary, haven't you? Or have you?
it's fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah.
really good job. And
yeah.
the size of it is, is really big.
It's
I was
nice.
actually having a conversation with Anton Troyer, who I know you follow as well.
Oh, yeah.
And we were talking about different things, and we were talking about his dictionary effort and whatnot. And
Mhm.
I mentioned offhand, I bragged about you a little bit. I bragged
Oh,
about
you
how
which?
we already had, what is it, something like way over 8,000 words, right?
Yeah, it's
And
close to 10,000. It's like 9,500, I think. Now.
that's a really big dictionary, and you've got a very high percentage that are recorded. It's a
Yeah,
huge. I mean, it's incredible. I think he had no idea that there was a sort of resource on Potawatomi. And
Yeah, we've been really trying to get that thing more and more recorded, so that I mean it's I think it's about 75% maybe right now of those words. But then of course that's just the beginning. Then we got the example sentences, we have auto recordings there. We also have the historic ones that are in it, which I love. And the capacity to put video in there is so cool too. Like I've got some of those entries, like we're talking about different plants. I have like a little video that we're talking about that plant and how we use it. But it's pretty neat. It's a pretty neat little dictionary. I definitely we created it in-house, so pretty proud of it. Another one that's
you
really
should be.
good.
It's really a terrific accomplishment. And it's good to see that it's backed by the tribe, and then it's got I think a certain clarity of its future, and hopefully it will be maintained and that sort of thing. The reason that came up actually is Anton's dictionary course is sort of backed by Bemidji State, so there's a certain permanency about that. I worry that Marianne Corbier's dictionary, it's sort of like her brainchild, and there's not really any institution that stands behind that's going to sort of ensure its future availability and
that is scary.
Sources of funds to maintain it as a useful and sustainable work, which I think is really important with online dictionaries, is that keep them maintained.
Yeah, I agree. It's really bad if you see those things just disappear and you're like, he's another one that's really good that you may not know about is there's one that a Freelang dictionary that's really phenomenal. It's got like 100,000 entries, and it's a compilation of like Baraga and like a couple of other dictionaries with it. It's really phenomenal. It's a Free Lang.
Charlie Lippert and Guy Gamble.
Yep. It's
Yeah,
really
I have come across it. I haven't spent much time with it.
It's interesting. It's got a lot of stuff in it, but not much audio, but it's got a lot of stuff in it. But I don't know if it has audio at all, but nothing about it. But
I've completely sabotaged your class. I
okay,
apologize. My
well-
apologies to Carrie Ann, because I've completely sabotaged the end of your class here.
That's okay.
You
We'll
could have
keep-
gone through a couple more slides.
No, we're doing it. We can keep going.
I'm happy to hear some more. I'm going to jump right at 3 because I do have another meeting to get to, but I'm
Oh.
happy to go through a bit more. I'm also sort of, it doesn't have to be today, but at some point I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you got to be so fluent, because, that's sort of a trick that I don't know how you do.
It's funny. There's a, the way I went about it is a little unorthodox, and there were people that told me that it would never happen that way. So it's definitely an interesting story. Oh, she said it's a good conversation. She's okay with it. So.
She's very kind. Thank you.
Yeah. So let's go through one more slide here real quick, and we can have that conversation later, definitely about that. Nija Ejbamadzawatgi Gagetsimuk. Nija Ejbamadzawatgi Gagetsimuk. So Nija Ejbamadzawat, how are they living? Your parents. Gagetsimuk. Nos Mijana and Wuk. I must have skipped a slide because I scan. I swear there was something right in front of this timeout here. Where did it go? Hold on here. I like there's a slide missing, and I'm trying to figure. I bet it fell off. I don't know. No smijana and wuk. My dad, he's a little bit better. Nestia, but Nagie megwe yet eji mishkukio gumgok. But my mom is still in the hospital. Nija ej webzit o gagie. How is your mom? Zinug nesse mina pasak zot. She's having difficulty breathing, and she has a fever. Nija ej webzit o gagie. Zinug means kind of like difficulty. That nesse is like breathing. So difficulty breathing. Zinug nesse mina pasak zot, and has a fever. Pasak zot. Sema nagi beged namwa o gagie. Sema nagi beged namwa o gagie. I put down some tobacco or for your mom. Sema nagi beged namwa o gagie. So sema tobacco nagi beged namwa. I did put down for her o gagie for your mom. Migwech seneget odojo pie ko bawa bawachewe yakmina. Migwech seneget odojo pie ko bawa bawachewe yakmina. Thank you. It's difficult right now, since we're not able to visit. So it's difficult right now since we're not able to visit. We demau o gagie nin ma yak mina bedo minot madzit gagasha. Tell your mother that we're thinking about her and we hope that she gets better soon. So we demau, tell her o gagie, your mother, egi nama yak. Nama is the verb to think. So we're thinking about her. Mina and bedo and hope. Bedo is just like a word that just means hope. Minot madzit, hope that she is in good health soon. Minop madzit gagasha. Gaga means soon. Migwech nui widmawa o ngiepi ewi shugano nakbama. So thank you. I will tell my mom when I talk to her on the phone later. Migwech nui widmawa o ngiepi ewi shugano nakbama. I didn't get to my chachamo either. Nija gomzagich. How is it today outside? Nija gomzagich. Metsana chomshen zagajasi. I haven't been outside yet. The metsana means I don't know. Chomshe, not yet. Nazagajase, see, I haven't went outside. Bedo we minogishkit. I hope it's going to be a good day. Bedo we minogishkit. I hope it's going to be a good day. Skana, Kietnam Kasinyam get me we bonim get. Jeez, it's really
Cold
cold.
and it's snowing.
Yeah, and it's snowing. I didn't know you were still there. Abduk gui bitoshkonyam gishpen zagajaseyak. So I'm gonna have to put on. You all are gonna have to put on layers if you go outside. Abduk gui bitoshkonyam gishpen zagajaseyak. Danes we nok bag jage oder konyak. Danes we nok bag jage oder konyak. Yeah, my daughter has softball this evening. We bitoshkona nake we bigajit. I'm gonna have to put some layers on her, or she is gonna be cold. We bitoshkona nake we bigajit. Squatchna pi nigi bitoshkonya egi gijamak bawamshe egi bagajmok. Gagish bagajmo egi ne kasenyam guk. So what that thing there says is squashna. So last time, squashna pi nigi, I put on layers, nigi bitoshkona, I put layers on her, egi gishkamak, she took them off, bawamshe egi bageshmot, before the sun went down. Gagish bageshmo, after the sun went down, egi ne kesenyam get, it started to become cold. Ilja wagi bitoshkan neap. And so then she had to put the layers back on. Ilja wagi neap. Okay. Bedowi Pukanagik. I hope she wins. Or they win. Bedowi Pukanagik. I hope they win. Miigwech. And the last one here. Gui Jachamne. Are you gonna sneeze? Gui Jachamne. Jachamo is the verb to sneeze. Gasi gasne gadeton. Yeah, do you have a tissue or even a napkin? Gasi gasne gadeton. Konage shoda. Yes, here. Achoo. Gamiquin mago. That's what we say when you, that's the word I was talking about earlier, like gamiquin mago. You are remembered, you're thought of. That's that word we use when somebody sneezes. Gamiquin mago.
Hey, Mark, how's it going?
Hey, you're on, there you might, there you go. Miigwech, Nigipi, Meanak, Odajopi. Thank you. I got allergies real bad right now. Kishki mina ragweed jinkade, Meanak, Odajopi. Cedar and ragweed are bad right now. I think there is a word for ragweed. I honestly just couldn't think of it off the top of my head. This all was coming off the top of my head and I just couldn't think of a word for ragweed. So I just said ragweed. This is actually, I thought it'd be a good example for people to understand that if you can't come up with a word immediately off your head, that doesn't mean you shouldn't say most of what you're saying in the language. It just means you can always put a jinkade, it is called, at the end of it, and just keep flowing. I think it's better to do that than it is to just stall out and stop talking. And nishnabam one is just to keep going, say jinkade and move forward. So kishki mina ragweed jinkade, meanak orajopi. It's bad right now. Bedo cho gabagi. Excuse me, cho gabagaji wapnasi. Cho gabagaji wapnasi. I hope that you don't have the flu. Bedo cho gabagaji wapnasi. Hope you don't have the flu. Ningaja, me too, ningaja. Cho nedwindesin boa o mikchuyan. Cho jash yaknoge piwin etoyan. Me also, ningaja. Cho nedwindesin. I don't want boa o mikchuyan. I don't want to not go to work. Cho jash, not yet, or not a bunch. Cho jash yaknoge piwin. Sick time etoyan. I don't have a lot of sick time. Cho jash yaknoge piwin. Etoyan. I don't have a lot of sick time. So, and that is it for today. Miigwech. I hope y'all enjoyed it. And Bama Mina.
Bama.
Oh.